Alistair Stevens.
I'm Elizabeth Ray.
And Tom Cruise is Ethan Hunt for the 5th time in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. This is the 38th episode of The Last Star in Hollywood, and the 5th time, as I noted in our little intro there, that we're talking about a Mission Impossible movie, and I'm going to tell you, novel things with which to start this podcast are few and far between at this point.
True.
So I really had to delve deep to figure out what makes Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation, a singularly interesting film. And it's unique in only one way, I have to say. It is unique in that it is the only Mission Impossible movie to be shorter than its predecessor.
Wow.
Besides this one, they all get longer, movie by movie by movie. Mission Impossible 1, a brisk and breezy 110 minutes.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible 2, 124. Mission Impossible 3, just the rate of inflation takes it to 126 minutes. Ghost Prot is 133. And Rogue Nation, a slender 131.
Ooh.
2 minutes shorter than Rogue Nation, despite feeling, I'm going to say 40 minutes longer. I'm going to say a lot longer than Ghost Protocol. I don't even say that as a complaint. This is just a dense film to me.
It is dense. Yeah, that's fair.
Fallout, by the way, will be much longer, 147 minutes, and Dead Reckoning will be even longer, still a titanic 163 minutes.
Dang.
That means that the total running time of Mission Impossible, as of the end of Rogue Nation, that is, if you've watched along with us in the Last Star in Hollywood series, then you have already watched 10 hours and 24 minutes. With at least another 5 hours and 10 minutes to go. That's just Mission Impossible. That's not all the films. That's just Mission Impossible. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never read Ulysses or any number of other great works of art and literature. There's so many things I could have done with that time. I've seen all these movies at least twice. That's so much time when you add it up.
I don't know. I don't mind. It's less than most people watch really mundane TV shows.
It's less than we watch really mundane TV shows.
Less than we do. Yeah.
Some of us rewatch seasons of The Great British Bake Off.
Listen, it's
which
just
you were
what I
doing
do in the
not
summertime
15 minutes
when
before
it's
we
really
sat down.
hot and you can't go outside. It's funny because now I kind of associate it just a little bit with COVID times. So it takes just a little bit of the pleasure and comfort out of it.
Particularly with the kids. When you are snuggled up on the couch watching Great British Bake Off with the kids, the whole place starts to feel claustrophobic in the way that it did during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's going to be with us probably forever. I don't know. Anyway, that's enough COVID talk here on the show because I was encouraged by my thoughts on this film's running time to do some statistical analysis.
I was encouraged by myself.
I was encouraged by my own brilliance and insight.
Yes.
To do some statistical analysis on the running time of the Cruise movies. In fact, I went on over to our production schedule, the link to which is in the show notes for every single episode of The Last Star in Hollywood, and add a running time column to that. So if you're inclined, you can sort by running time and just see which ones are shorter. Do you know the 3 shortest Tom Cruise films? There are only 3 films which come in at 100 minutes or fewer. Do you know which ones they are?
Which ones felt really brief? I want to say the football one. What was that one?
The football one, All the Right Moves,
All the Right
is
Moves.
in fact the shortest.
That felt shortest. Yeah. It felt almost
in
like
and out.
a long pilot for a TV show.
Yeah. Fairly recently, we talked about Lions for Lambs, which is the second shortest. That's
did
92
not
minutes.
feel short.
It did not. Though it did
That's
feel
a surprise.
insubstantial.
Yes. That did not feel like a short film. That's really interesting.
And then the third shortest is Risky Business, which runs 99 minutes. So yeah, you got to dig a long way back into Cruise's career to find
that one
very
didn't feel
short
as short
films.
either. That's interesting.
The longest, do you want to take a swing at the 3 longest?
Ooh, Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut is the third longest. Yes, 159
it felt
minutes.
the very longest. That's very interesting.
Sure.
Okay.
Though I will say too that 159 minutes for Eyes Wide Shut, that will be displaced by Dead Reckoning at 163 minutes. So
which was supposed
Eyes
to
Wide
be
Shut won't even make the top 3 by the
movies,
time we're
so
done.
I guess that makes a little bit
No,
of
it was
sense.
supposed to be the first of a duology.
Oh my God.
And they've just changed the name of the second film so that it's now no longer Dead Reckoning Part 1, but just Dead Reckoning.
Okay. Wow.
So that's the third longest film in Cruise's entire filmography to date. Second longest? Can you take a swing?
Maverick.
No. Nowhere
Maverick
near, in
seemed
fact.
long too.
Yeah, no.
No?
Think epic.
Far and Away.
Far and Away, the
That was the
director's
epic,
cut, the
yeah.
extended cut of Far and Away is 170
Is that the one
minutes.
we watched? I don't recall.
Yes, I
Yeah?
watched it. And then the very longest comes in at an absolutely huge 188 minutes. It's the only Tom Cruise film to tip 3 hours.
Dang.
Can you remember?
No.
Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia.
Oh, of course, Magnolia.
Such a sprawling movie.
And it was sprawling, and of course it felt long, but it also, God, it's just so different. It's
Yeah.
That's interesting that one didn't come to me. It should have.
And because it's an anthology piece,
yeah,
it feels
that's
a little
also
less
true. It's
monolithic in that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
In
actually.
some ways, even more like watching a season of a TV show.
It is.
Sitting down to watch one film.
Yeah.
So the average length of Tom Cruise films is 126 minutes. And I'm going to tell you, there is one film which clocks in at precisely 126 minutes. And that is J.J. Abrams' Mission Impossible 3. Therefore, it is a perfectly average Tom Cruise film.
Fair.
Not according to our scale, of course, not according to our chart. What's most interesting and what I found most surprising about all of this is that if you plot the lengths of the movies on a graph, there isn't, as you might expect, a general upward trend. Rather, they start shorter, Losing It, Risky Business, and All the Right Moves, right? These are the three very early in his career there. Then we see a big uptick right in the middle of his career. But if you discount the last two Mission Impossible movies, Fallout and Dead Reckoning, his films have been really consistent in their running time for the last 25 years.
That seems right. He seems very like methodical in a certain way.
It's kind of surprising. It really,
not that it's up to him all the time, but
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much
a
up to him
bit.
for at least the last 25 years. Yeah. I'd be really interested to dig in and find out if this is consistent across the board, if there is a metric by which you can measure box office success based on the length of the film, because it certainly feels as though, the Marvel movies, for example,
they've
are
gotten so
inflating
bloated.
and inflating and inflating. And when they're not, there's oftentimes a negative audience response. They
Reminds me
thin.
of when the Harry Potter books were coming out.
Sure.
And the fourth book was so fat, and the fifth book was so fat, and we got the sixth book, and we're like, what the fuck's this?
I feel shortchanged.
Exactly.
Can you please add some more inessential subplots? That's pretty much all that there is if we're going to look at Mission Impossible 5 Rogue Nation from a statistical perspective. I will say this from a more, qualitative perspective. It's a really good film.
Yes.
I really like it as a sequel. I really like it as an entry into the franchise. It is in some ways very unusual. I cannot wait to talk to you about your thoughts on our reorienting of the film's perspective and our repositioning of Ethan Hunt outside of our really strictly protagonistic space. He has control over all of the action scenes, but he is not generally leading the plot. Because we can't be sure if we trust him. Right, because
we don't know where he is or how to... Yeah, I didn't even put that together. That's really smart.
It's such an interesting thing to look at the way that Simon Pegg is really stepping... this is such a preposterous step up for him from the previous movies.
And so good, so well.
You think he handles it well?
I do. I really do. Yeah, he was lovely in this movie.
We can kind of gloss even before we get to the trailer game, if you like, because so many of these actors are now well established. We don't really have to talk about Jeremy Renner. We don't really have to talk about Ving Rhames. We don't really have to talk about Simon Pegg. You just want to give me like a quick performance review for each of them, a thumbs up, thumbs down on this movie. How do you think Cruise did, to start with him?
Cruise was great in this. Yeah, I really like this Ethan Hunt. Yeah, this is great.
Pegg?
All-time best so far.
I think so too.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure. I generally, I think, like Fallout a little more than even this film, which is very close to the top of my list. I maybe think that Benji doesn't get better.
This was excellent Benji. Yeah, agreed.
Jeremy Renner playing Brant this time around?
Just not great.
See, that's interesting. I think he's better than he is in Ghost Protocol, but he's so much less essential that it just really stands out how much he does not need to be here. It's just that they keep putting him next
to Alec Baldwin, who is actually really performing and being great. And you're like, oh, son, sit down, honey.
And Ving Rhames, we're kind of at the point where Ving Rhames is becoming...
This looks more like Luther that I remember.
Oh,
right?
Yeah? Really?
I feel like yes. Because we got that weird Luther for a while that was like super blinged out or whatever. Remember? That was so strange.
He is still wearing, I think I counted 4 different versions of exactly the same hat in this film, which is...
Sure,
I mean,
he
that's
accessorizes.
Just
but this is a different kind of like, it seems like he got it somewhere on an interesting shop.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Off.
Oh yeah, he has a guy in Savile Row who just
Savile
sends
Row.
him,
Thank
like,
you. That's the word. That's what I was
hats.
looking for. Yes, exactly. But as opposed to before, where he looked like he'd been shopping at a fancy outlet mall.
This is unfortunately the movie where Ving Rhames' knee condition, which means that he cannot run in real life, is really evident because we are cutting hard around his inability to move quickly on screen, which
they make it a plot point when he's trying to get to Ilsa in time.
Where 120 people come out of nowhere, flash mob him, and then disappear in the reverse angle shot. That's a real moment where the film is building some scaffolding to accommodate its plot, I'll tell you what.
For sure.
So with all that said, let's get into it with the trailer game.
Sure. Mission Impossible is back, and this time we've got a handle on what we are doing. Ethan Hunt has gone rogue. Ilsa Faust, a little rogue. Simon, what's his name? The villain guy, also rogue. An entire rogue nation. We have car chases, motorcycle chases, plane stunts, underwater stunts. Rebecca Ferguson does more than wear a dress, but goddamn does she wear a dress. This one has it all. This summer, Mission Impossible 5. No 5, it's cleaner. Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation.
It's like high wire work. It's the most extraordinary thing to watch the look on your face when you're doing
fun.
that.
Yeah.
It's not your preferred thing. Here, can we confess
preferred.
this 38 episodes into this run that
even though it was
this
my
is a
idea.
bad idea
Yes.
that you do not like doing it?
Yes. Yeah. And it was my idea. So I doubly have to, double down on it.
That's
it's
it.
tough.
I don't mind it. I like, the notion of coming up with stupid forced bits, but
Yeah.
you always feel so uncomfortable when you sit down to do the
A
trilogy.
little. I suddenly get quite flushed and hot. Like right now I'm holding my hair up over my neck. So I'm like, oh, that made me so warm. Yeah. It's a little terrifying.
It's so weird because
Which
you're
is weird.
such a natural improviser.
Well,
but you don't
say
think
this,
so.
I don't
No,
think it's
I know,
true.
I know.
Yeah. And also, I know that we can edit it, but it doesn't feel like it. I still feel like everyone's waiting for me to be funny at a party, and it's a terrible
I
feeling.
really only edit it for pacing so it matches up with the music,
Yeah.
and that's about it.
That's true. Yeah. Mhm.
The idea I had for this one was more of a D&D joke. The existence of a rogue nation suggests the existence of a cleric nation, a druid nation, a wizard nation. No, it's not really a joke, but see, it's not my week, so I just took
wouldn't
it
get
easy.
it, so I don't know. I'm sure it's a
kicked up my
good joke.
heels and relaxed. Perhaps surprisingly, it took almost 18 months from the release of Ghost Protocol for Paramount to officially announce the fifth Mission Impossible sequel, this time directed by Christopher McQuarrie. Drew Pearce, a writer who got tangled up with Marvel after co-writing Iron Man 3 with Shane Black and then never really made his mark again, was initially hired to write the script. Almost a year later, he was replaced by writer Will Staples, who is most famous, believe it or not, for writing the video game Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. I don't know if that makes him well suited to write a blockbuster movie script. In fact, I do know, because it turns out he was replaced almost immediately by Christopher McQuarrie, who just decided to do it all himself. McQuarrie gets the sole screenplay credit. He shares a story by credit with Pierce. And that's the production history of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Oh, wow.
It is such a well-oiled machine by this point. They start principal photography without a complete cast, without a complete script, without even really knowing how the film is going to end, but they are confident that they are going to get there because they have all worked together so many times.
Yeah.
Which is, I imagine, a pretty cool feeling.
I guess so. Impressive. Still a little, again, the improv side of me is like, that's so scary. But yeah, maybe.
Much less actual improv when you're helming a $150 million high-profile big blockbuster budget. Yeah. So let's just talk about the cast then. Please, can we talk about Rebecca Ferguson?
Oh my God, she's so terrific. But the character is really good too. So we get both in this, which is wonderful. We get a really well-written character who can stand up to Ethan Hunt and meet him where he is and be on his terms, even trick him a couple of times.
Yeah.
And we get Rebecca Ferguson, who is such an extraordinary performer and who's giving so much. She has so much soulfulness and so much intelligence and just that little bit of playfulness. She's wonderful.
Yeah. Can you break down for me exactly how she works for you as, a female action star? Because she's absolutely handling herself during these fight sequences, during these action sequences. She's just extraordinary. And she is, it seems to me, like the manifestation of what is promised to us every single Bond movie. Every single time there's a new Bond movie, they announce the new Bond girl, and she says, well, I'm not like the other Bond girls. I'm really like a match for Bond. I'm more of a peer than I am someone to be used and discarded in the third act of the film. And that has never been true.
Yeah.
Literally never been true. Except here,
Yeah.
Ilsa actually steps up out of nowhere from the first second she's on screen.
It's true. Yeah. No, she's really wonderful. I love the move they give her where she jumps up and breaks a guy's neck or whatever with her thighs.
Very cool. That
very
has been
cool.
often replicated, but
yeah. Well, she does it 3 times in this movie, and it looks awesome. Yeah, she does great.
Yeah, there is a thing about female action stars killing people with their thighs. It is a thing that we go back. It kind of goes all the way back to Xenia Onatopp, speaking of Bond. It goes all the way to Famke Janssen, though at least we don't have the quasi-orgasmic qualities.
Right.
In this. God, that film is so weird.
It's so weird.
So weird. So she is, just terrific. She's born in 1983 in Stockholm, Sweden, to an English mother and a Swedish father. She attends an English language school growing up and is fluent in both English and Swedish. She attends music school and graduates in 1999, though by that time she's already an established model, dancer, and actor.
Cool.
In 1999, she's cast in a Swedish soap opera and is an immediate hit. as you would expect. She makes her big screen debut in 2004 in Mikhail Hallström's horror movie Drowning Ghost, which I have not seen but sounds amazing.
That does sound cool. Yeah.
Her real break, though, comes all the way in 2013 when she is cast in the BBC adaptation of The White Queen, adapted from the Philippa Gregory novels.
That's the first thing I saw her in. She really struck me in it.
She is a phenomenon in that series. She wins a Golden Globe nomination for her performance there, and that leads directly to Rogue Nation, which is only her 5th feature film credit when she does it. She's just extraordinary. She's going to appear again in Fallout and in Dead Reckoning. She's also in The Girl on the Train with Emily Blunt, which is not as good as you want it to be, but it is Rebecca Ferguson and Emily Blunt in that film, so it's worth watching. She's in Dr. Sleep, the belated sequel to The Shining. She is weirdly fantastic, weirdly over-delivering as Morgana, the villain of Joe Cornish's swing at a modern Arthurian myth, The Kid Who Would Be King.
That's a fun movie.
That flew almost completely under the radar, but guys at home, if you have never seen it, if you're at all interested in it, particularly if you have kids, The Kid Who Would Be King, a British kind of rough and tumble working class retelling of the Arthur myth that then descends into a full-on apocalyptic battle for the world at the end. It's really impressive, and Rebecca Ferguson is absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, she's Lady Jessica Atreides in the Dune movies and Denis Villeneuve's Dune movies.
Yeah, I still haven't seen any of the Dunes.
Yeah. So she is absolutely at the high point of her career right now as we're recording this, and long may she reign. That's what I say.
Indeed.
How important is it to you at this point that we get, I guess, on the one hand, someone who can really balance Ethan and someone who is, you know, a strong, capable female character in this series?
I'm grateful because I really wanted to I've already forgotten her name, his wife.
Michelle Monaghan.
Yes. Yeah. I was going for the character name, but yes, Michelle Monaghan.
Julia?
Yeah, that sounds like it could be right. Maybe. Julia sounds right.
Sure.
Anyway, so Michelle Monaghan's wife character, I really wanted to but we just didn't get enough, and then they immediately suddenly turned her into, oh no, I can just kill anybody in cold blood, and there was not enough connective tissue there.
There is a bit of a swing.
Yeah, so I just I wanted to like her, but I haven't yet. But Rebecca Ferguson's character, Ilsa Faust, also a spy, also one of the very best, top of her game, undercover, incognito. She's just incredible and sharp and smart, but she also has that compassion and humanity that Ethan Hunt has, and that loyalty that Ethan Hunt has. I think that she's a great, I was going to say foil for him, but she's not going to foil, a great
an intermittent
companion.
foil.
Yeah,
no,
sure.
I think that is what makes her work peculiarly in this film, is that she can match Cruise's intensity while giving something that is more nuanced and giving something that is more human and giving something that is simultaneously more relatable and more unknowable.
Yes.
And I think it's really interesting that when I asked you about female characters in the Mission Impossible series, you went back to Michelle Monaghan rather than talking about either Lea Seydoux or Paula Patton.
Because they were terrible. They were nobody.
From Ghost Protocol.
Yeah, they were not good. The one I remember most, I suppose, is Tandaway Newton, who was
all the way
also
back in 2.
Yeah.
Who is abused by the last act of that film in the worst possible way.
Worst possible way. Yeah.
But
comes out in a nice, the whole cat burglar thing is sharp in the beginning, and it just goes nowhere, and she just gets
that's
damseled terribly.
Pretty much true of that film's arc as a whole. It's interesting that last week I was talking about, when we were discussing Edge of Tomorrow, I was talking about Cruise's habit in this period of his career to kind of voluntarily sideline himself to an incredibly capable actor who can do a lot of the ass kicking, do a lot of the action roles. You know, obviously Emily Blunt in that film. And I think that Rebecca Ferguson is every bit as strong here. Probably even more strong, probably even better than Emily Blunt in Edge of Tomorrow, just because Emily Blunt gets to do relatively fewer things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was nice to watch these two side by side, because I agree. It was two really great roles and two really great performances up next to Cruise doing something that's pretty similar to what Cruise always does. Yeah. So it really just added an extra, layer of complexity and loveliness.
Makes me really excited to see Hayley Atwell.
Me too. I love Hayley Atwell. Yes, I'm really looking forward to that. Yes, we love her.
Let's move on from Rebecca Ferguson to talk a little about Sean Harris, who I believe you called Simon in your trailer game.
That's not it?
How did you forget
Simon
the iconic
Lane?
name Solomon Lane?
Solomon Lane.
Solomon Lane.
Yeah, it's a good name. Sorry.
All of the names in Mission Impossible, just that one beat over architected.
A little bit.
I mean, Ilsa Faust is a little on the nose. Seriously.
Meet her in Casablanca. Okay, Ilsa, let's go.
After selling her soul to the devil.
Right?
Oh my God. The layers of meaning are really very shallow indeed, but they are there. Sean Harris might not be recognizable in this film to many viewers,
no.
mostly because he generally wears a beard to cover up for, he doesn't have the strongest chin.
Not
in
a
the
strong
world.
chin. Yeah.
But I love his decision to like make that almost a part of his characterization.
Totally.
Here. He has been in just 1,000 things. He's born in 1966 in Bethnal Green in London. He grows up in Suffolk. He attends the Drama Centre London and is then hired by the Glasgow Citizens Theatre, which is a very well-respected theatre in Scotland. He pivots to playing mostly villains and serial killers on TV, as you would expect.
Yep.
He is acclaimed as Micheletto in Neil Jordan's series The Borgias in the early 2010s. I have no idea if that made it all the way to the US or not.
Never
you
heard
give
of
me
it.
a very blank look there, but it's a really prestigious and very well esteemed series that directly gets him a job in Ridley Scott's Prometheus in 2012. And from there, he gets to have that kind of career which you get if you are a slightly odd-looking British character actor who has been theatrically trained, where you can either be an outright villain and give just this awful malevolence on screen, or you can wield all of this gravitas and be the heart of something that's a little more theatrical, a little more prestige-y, a little more, high-end. He does both, I think, with equal facility. I think he's really quite good in a film that runs out of things for him to do about 2/3 of the way through its running time.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
We don't land him really anywhere interesting at the end of this film.
No, he's pretty shallow. I think that the entire idea of the Syndicate is a really great idea and really compelling, but his character itself as Solomon Lane is maybe a little bit flat, a little one note.
Yeah, I'm a little interested in this then. Can you kind of gloss your understanding of the Syndicate and what it does narratively for you in the world of Mission Impossible? Because we can frame this out a little bit too by saying that this is the movie that again tries to take the IMF and situate it more specifically in a real world intelligence infrastructure.
Yes.
Kind of, right? There's a lot of asterisks attached to everything I just said there. But we really are like enfolding the IMF into the American intelligence infrastructure.
Right.
Does that work for you? And does the Syndicate work for you as, an extension of this, I don't know, what would you call it? Like paranational almost kind of approach to international diplomacy?
Yeah. I mean, yes, both work for me. I really like Alec Baldwin as Hunley, bringing in this extra I don't know, the CIA, someone's going to shut us down, but
something bureaucratic, something
very
officious.
Bureaucratic. Yes, but also like kind of impressed by the IMF and like kind of wants to like that. All of that is just very interesting to me.
My favorite thing about Baldwin in this film is that he is such a fanboy for Ethan Hunt.
Right?
It is outrageous.
It's kind of adorable though. It's really funny.
Borderline homoerotic, which is the thing that I would completely embrace. But you're right. He's very distinct from the versions of this character that we've seen before, the Lawrence Fishburne version of this character.
Right.
Even the Billy Crudup version of this character, right?
Yeah. Well, and especially because he doesn't have like any other affiliation. Well, what am I trying to say? He doesn't have any like nefarious motives of his own. He's exactly who he says he is. And I really like that.
Yes.
Like he's applying this external pressure and just ready to shut this shit down because it's too chaotic. It doesn't make and because he doesn't trust what is happening.
That's my question, though. Are we supposed to trust him? Are we supposed to believe that he has good intentions? Or are we ever supposed to think for a moment that he is like a part of the Syndicate, that is why he is trying to shut it all down?
I don't know. I never really thought that. I think we're supposed to think that
I don't think it either.
Renner could have turned everybody in. Brandt, is that his name?
Well, but we think that Renner is turning...
Even the name is right. Brandt.
Right. Brandt. We're using him to turn to Hunley, though, to turn to the CIA.
Yeah.
There's really no sense that any member of our team, besides Ilsa, of course, is like defecting to the bad guys. We're kind of...
No, but just like, that they've
embracing
quit their
a real
rock band
politic, right?
and now they're working for, I don't know, the local music store or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It feels crazy that this is perhaps the most naturalistic depiction of international politics that we've had in the Mission Impossible series so far, given how outlandish and lunatic it is. But, the addition of the Austrian Chancellor, the British Prime Minister, the idea that other countries have intelligence services all their own. The addition of Attlee, who I think is great in the two scenes that he gets.
Agreed.
I think he's very strong. But so overall, Baldwin works for you as a positive pressure.
Baldwin works for me definitely as a positive pressure. Yeah, and then the idea of the Syndicate, like these people who are disillusioned by espionage and by their countries and by power.
Who have been either disavowed or who are presumed dead, which we might also read as a kind of disavowal. Right? It's not that they have been struck off. It's just that we're happy for these people to no longer continue in the intelligence services.
Yeah.
It's a really Cold War kind of depiction of the great game, right? This kind of John le Carre idea that as an intelligence operative, your job is to go out. Your job is to like leave the confines of culture and society behind and be this quasi-independent force just out there in the world.
Yeah.
Only to hopefully come back in. And of course, that doesn't happen because it's not narratively interesting for spies to actually stop being spies, basically.
Sure, yeah.
Let's talk a little about Alec Baldwin. It is surprising to me that this is the first film in which he has scenes with Tom Cruise. I know that he has scenes with Stacey Jacks in Rock of Ages, of course.
Oh, right.
But Stacey Jacks is such a caricature, and that is defiantly not a Tom Cruise film in the same way that Mission Impossible is a Tom Cruise film.
Wow.
And it's also, well, it's as different a performance as Baldwin gives these days, which is to say that all of his performances are kind of the same. He's born in Amityville in New York in 1958. He's the eldest of the four Baldwin brothers. And I genuinely think it is interesting that if you know Baldwin now, if you have known Baldwin over these last 25 years or whatever, there was a time when he was a really hot and interesting young actor, when he was going to be one of the guys of his generation. He breaks in the soap opera Knots Landing in 1984 after studying at George Washington University and the Tisch School of the Arts in New York, then with the Actors Studio and graduating with a BFA from NYU. In 1988, he breaks into movies in the same year, right? With Jonathan Demme's Married to the Mob, Mike Nichols' Working Girl, Oliver Stone's Talk Radio, and Tim Burton's Beetlejuice.
Dang,
all
that's a big
in
year.
the same year. That makes him the hottest property.
Yeah.
He is also, I will say, pretty great in all of those films and really great in Beetlejuice. It is such a grounded, natural, interesting, complex, romantic performance. Wow. I really, really like him in that film.
Do you know I have never seen Beetlejuice?
Really?
Never seen
That's
it.
astonishing.
Yeah, I've seen little clips from it throughout my life, but I've never actually seen the movie. Well, I'm going to have to add that to my list.
I would say that we would put it on the poll, and certainly we should probably watch it before the sequel comes
but
out. But we're not going to put it on the poll because we're going to pick something else that Rebecca Ferguson is in. Quite
enough.
frankly. That's where we are right now in our journey. Baldwin has everything you need at this point to be a legitimate Hollywood leading man, and things do go well for a while. He has The Hunt for Red October in 1990. He has Glengarry Glen Ross, in which he is genuinely great in 92. Malice in 93. He marries Kim Basinger the same year. They remain together until 2002, though their divorce is kind of public and acrimonious and kind of happens during the turning point of his career, because in the very late 90s and the very early 2000s, suddenly those movie roles just dry up. He pivots to television, particularly to sitcoms, at a time when movie actors don't do that. He has the run on Friends as Phoebe's boyfriend. He shows up in Will and Grace as Mega Mullally's boyfriend for a while, who is, I think, a spy? Is a secret agent of some sort?
Sure. I don't know.
That just popped into my head as I'm speaking to you right now. I've got absolutely nothing with which I can confirm that information, but I think it's there nonetheless. He's on Nip Tuck. He does a couple of things like that. Scorsese hires him from that point and gives him roles in The Aviator and in The Departed. And then all at once it's 2006. And he is Jack Donaghy on 30 Rock.
30 Rock,
and he stops being anything else for the rest of his career. Every other performance since then has been a variation on Jack Donaghy, which is a really great comic creation, right?
Yeah.
30 Rock works because of Alec Baldwin. That is the reason that show can like narratively function at a very basic level. But everything he's done since then has been some version of this guy who is at the same time incredibly principled, incredibly clear, incredibly focused, but also sleazy and manipulative and completely without guilt or shame over his own actions, right? That gets us to It's Complicated and Rock of Ages. It gets us to Aloha. It gets us to 40 episodes of Saturday Night Live where he plays Donald Trump in a performance that is ever only slightly middling, like never ascends into the realm of being remotely good, but still kind of works because he's kind of that guy. What do you think of this late era Baldwin? Do you have any real affection for him?
I don't know much about this era of Baldwin. I have never seen 30 Rock. I've never seen him impersonate Trump. So I couldn't really say.
He's not really on your radar then.
Well, no, the reason he's on my radar is because of Rust.
Well, yes, of course.
That's what Alec Baldwin has been in my brain for the last few years because of film school and like there was just so much conversation that happened about the nature of the industry. And that was right around the time of the strikes as well.
Yes.
And just really drawing attention to, things that needed to be addressed in the filmmaking industry as a whole.
Absolutely.
So unfortunately, that's how I think of him.
We should note that as of right now, the involuntary manslaughter charges levied against Alec Baldwin for the death of Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust have been dismissed with prejudice because the prosecution withheld evidence from the defense. It is unclear at this point what the next step is. It is still possible that he could stand trial for whatever role he may or may not have played in the awful things that happened on the set of Rust.
Yeah, and that's just one of those things where if he was the producer and the person carrying and firing the weapon, then there is a certain amount of culpability no matter what.
There is a certain amount of culpability.
There were like 8 to 12 other things that had to also go wrong.
Exactly right. And his culpability for being the producer is completely distinct from his culpability for being the actor. And I don't know how you prosecute that.
I don't know either. Yeah, that's where it gets really sticky.
Incredibly complicated. And of course, just awful, just flat out an awful circumstance that should never have happened.
Much less culpability as being the actor than being the producer. But,
you would hope so.
But when you're the producer, you're supposed to be making sure that everything happens as it's supposed to happen and that things happen safely and go through the correct channels. Like it should have never happened.
It should not have happened 50 different times.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right. That's what has made it such a challenging case for anyone who's involved in film production, I think, because it demonstrates a systemic breakdown.
Yes,
it demonstrates an absolute fundamental series of flaws in what we took to be a fairly safe industry.
Carelessness. It came down to carelessness, and somebody.
Oh God, we hope it came down to carelessness, and we hope it didn't come down to malice or any other possible motivation.
I can't imagine.
Corners being cut, money being saved.
Sure, that's still I wouldn't say malice, but that is more than carelessness.
I feel like for all of this discussion, I've been pretty negative. I've been pretty hard on Baldwin. I will say, I like the thing that Baldwin does. I just find it interesting that as a very exciting young actor, he has matured into this one kind of monolithic thing, whether it's this role or it's Boss Baby or it's complicated, in which he's fantastic, right?
He is great.
In It's Complicated.
He's great in The Edge. That was a long time ago, but God, so good in that movie.
Sure. Yeah, he's got a huge amount of personal charm. He's got, I'm going to say, as much charm as the other three Baldwins combined.
Sure, I think it's fair to say.
Do you have a second favorite Baldwin? I mean, Billy
really.
Probably, right? Billy Baldwin's probably. I don't even know if it's. Yeah, I don't know if it's worth having.
Not completely sure that I'd be able to name them, honestly.
Let's wrap up our discussion of the cast of this film then by noting the presence of Tom Hollander, who plays, of course, the British Prime Minister here. I find Tom Hollander so interesting because he has managed to make a really interesting career out of. Well, one of two things. Out of either not being a very good actor or being a very good actor who can consistently portray someone who is not a very good actor on screen. He never feels confident. He never feels like he is a fit for the film that he is in or the TV show that he is in. He always feels orthogonal to what is happening. And I'm genuinely unsure if that is an unusual and specific talent, that kind of on-screen awkwardness.
Yeah, he does have an awkwardness, but I think it's just part of his humor. And he does make me laugh.
He does. Well, that makes a lot of sense. He comes up through footlights, of course. I'll just note that he was born in 1967 in Bristol, in England. He studies English at Selwyn College, Cambridge, which is what gets him to the Cambridge Footlights, that celebrated and feted theatrical comedic troupe that has spot. If you like someone who is British and funny and kind of, upper class, then you like the Footlights. I've got a brief list here, and this is a fraction. Emma Thompson, Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, Douglas Adams, most of Monty Python, of course, Sue Perkins and Mel Gedroych, formerly of the British Baking Show, as mentioned, feminist academic and commentator Germaine Greer, Olivia Colman, Dan Stevens, and, King Charles III, by the grace of God, the King of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and his other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth Defender of the Faith. You know that guy? An actual member of the Cambridge Footlights.
Weird.
You can go back and find news stories from the 1960s that are like scandalized that the future King of Britain might instead abdicate the throne and become an actor. Which is wild. And maybe he wishes now that he had. I don't know. It would have been a very different life. Does Tom Hollander work for you in this film as
very much. Yeah,
the
I
Prime
think he's
Minister
really
of
funny.
Great Britain?
Yeah, he's funny. He's sweet. He's Yeah, I'm giggling thinking about him.
His
Totally works.
timing
Yeah.
is very good, I think.
Timing is very good.
Yeah.
And I like putting him opposite Cruz. I like their, men of a height. It's cute.
Yeah.
I like it.
This is, again, a film where we're happy depicting
Cruz as a
just
small
a little guy.
Yeah.
The sequence in The Flies at the Venice Opera House is
With super tall man.
really fun.
Yeah, it's funny and good.
Yeah.
I completely agree. You don't lose anything. Just leverage it.
That's exactly it, right? Make it a strength rather than a weakness. That he's a plucky little dude who's on the back foot. I like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
This movie is shot by Robert Elswit, who previously shot, Magnolia and Boogie Nights and Punch Drunk Love and There Will Be Blood for Paul Thomas Anderson. He previously shot also Ghost Protocol for Brad Bird. He's an absolute legend who is currently filming right now at the age of 74 a James L. Brooks movie called Ella McKay, starring Emma Mackey from Sex Education, starring Ayo Edebiri from The Bear, starring Rebecca Hall from A Million Good Things, including playing Elizabeth Marston in Professor Marston and the Wonder Women.
Oh, yeah.
Kumail Nanjiani, Woody Harrelson, Albert Brooks. That film is in production right now.
Wild.
So there is hope for cinema after all. Robert Elswit is, as I say, 74. James L. Brooks is 84 years old, but still doing the work.
They should run for president.
Still turning. Dateline this episode, the 30th of July. That's the 30th of July. Rogue Nation shoots between August of 2014, by which time, as I said, they don't have half the cast, but they start shooting action sequences anyway, and filming wraps by March of 2015, which is a very long production. That's only March of 2015, by the way, is only 4 months before this movie hits theaters, which accounts, I think, for some shaky CGI work in the post-production.
Yeah.
There are a couple shots
bothered you more than
that
me this
don't look
time.
awesome.
Usually it really bothers me, but I didn't notice as much in this one.
I think it's because most of this film looks just extraordinary. And then there are literally, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 shots over the whole thing, and the entire sequence with Brandt and Luther on the rooftop where we have obviously green screened them.
Oh, you're so sensitive to green screen.
Oh,
Yeah.
they haven't
funny.
even tried to match lighting through that sequence. It is so obviously a pickup that they just shot on the studio set. That is striking how bad that looks for a modern movie. It's really wild.
That's too bad.
They started shooting in Vienna, then they shoot in Morocco, they relocate to London where they shoot all of the exteriors, and they shoot all their interiors at Leavesden Studios, which must at this point feel like home to Cruise after all his time there. The Airbus A400M Atlas stunt, which opens the movie, was shot in 48 hours. They did 8 takes, and that was sufficient.
That's really cool. I've seen some behind the scenes about that and Tom Cruise talking about it. I think I mentioned that early on in the podcast, and it was just so impressive with what a pro he is. Like waiting for his light and waiting for the time to be just right, and then yelling the line, and it's
wearing
impressive
heavy glass contact lenses to protect his eyes, because at the speed that they were traveling, he could not see while doing that sequence anything other than the faintest blur of light, because they had to protect his eyes, because if a particle of sand hit his eye at that speed, that would have been it for Tom Cruise's sight. Like, it's incredibly dangerous.
Yikes.
It's a phenomenally striking visual sequence, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's exciting. The only thing that doesn't work for me is that the take off is so smooth that it's really visual when you see, he's like well off the ground now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I wish that there had been an angle that was a little different where I could see him like leave the ground and be like, oh my God.
It's so interesting because that is cinema, right? Cinema exists in the cuts and in the edits. They do this entire sequence in one take, and you get to see it, in effect, in one take.
Right.
Which, in this instance, de-emphasizes how amazing and special it is.
I think so a little bit.
Much later, when we do the diving sequence, when we're underwater for all that time, he trained to do that in an unbroken 3-minute shot. He held his breath consistently, take after take after take, for 3 minutes. His stunt coordinator said that he was consistently holding his breath for more than 6 minutes, which is, hella impressive, but you're no Kate Winslet's son. But that sequence, well, I should probably asterisk that, right? Yeah. Kate Winslet was holding her breath for 7.5 minutes on the set of Avatar 2.
Insane.
The news came
Absolutely
out this week,
crazy.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
But they cut the underwater sequence 2 pieces in order to make it less impressive as a stunt, but more effective narratively and dramatically.
And I think sometimes that's the right call.
I think so too.
But I will say that scene in the tank is harrowing.
It's
like
very
watching
bad.
him basically drown in front of you is not a good time.
I do not like it.
Yeah.
I have no problem with water, like in general. I'm not hydrophobic or whatever. I don't have trouble with the sea or lakes.
Those kinds of hold your breath scenes always stress me out.
Spaces, Very.
Oh,
You know, the worst scene for
cool
me
spaces.
is the scene where he jumps into the intake.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate it. That is,
Yeah.
for me,
A
the
hell no.
tensest, scariest moment. It looks so otherworldly.
It does look
And
otherworldly.
that's just a real thing they built. Like, he didn't really jump into it, but they did really build it and shoot it. It's, I don't like it at all, I have to say. They finally pause principal photography on February 20th, like all the way into the shoot, when they realize that they don't have an ending that's working. So they go to a hotel
Ooh.
room. Here's what's really interesting.
That the ending
McQuarrie-
still doesn't work that well?
The ending still doesn't work that well, which makes a lot of sense because they shot the whole thing in 10 days,
Sure.
apparently, after they
It's
rebroke
fine.
the script and kind of tried to figure out something that would carry them across the
Yeah.
finish line. What's really interesting is that every single account here says that Cruise, McQuarrie, and an unidentified third person went to this hotel room to work on the script, and that is how it is listed in every single account. Cruise, McQuarrie, an unidentified third person.
Unidentified third person.
I have no idea
How
what that, like,
strange.
why would you not identify that person?
Ah.
Why isn't there speculation about who that person is? Is it someone who, like, isn't a member of the PGA? Like, would this count as producing?
Oh.
Is someone secretly scabbing here so we don't want to say that they really did it? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
is
That's
this
really
like,
interesting.
I don't know. Is Rebecca Ferguson like in that room but not a member of the WGA, so she's not allowed to contribute to
Could be,
the script
could
without
be.
it going to accreditation? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
The rules, man. Yeah.
And the
I
rules,
don't
as
know.
we've discovered through the course of this series, which I once thought were so firm and strict, are so soft
They're
and
so
such
soft.
nonsense.
I know.
I don't know, man. I don't know. So yes, they throw out the entire end of the movie, and then they shoot everything that is in that last sequence in London. Basically everything from the scene with Benji and Ilsa at the cafe, where he is rigged with the explosive device,
Yes.
through the chase, through the gunfight, through the hand-to-hand combat between Ilsa and Dr. Bones, or whatever his name
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
The Bone
Doctor.
I like Dr. Bones better, I'm going to say it.
Dr. Bones.
You know, he did not go
Dr.
to medical
Bones.
school to be Mr. Bones. My name is Dr. Bones. Call me the Bone Doctor. That is a Batman villain. That
Oh
is.
my God, it's terrible.
All of this apparently was shot in the last 10 days of principal photography before a 4-month post-production process, which I
Damn.
think might also account for why that sequence is weirdly color graded. We're
It's
really
all
leveraging
weirdly
the
color graded,
oranges
though.
in that last
yeah,
sequence.
I don't know. I think the whole movie is over color
You
graded.
do not care for it, do you?
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially there are so many scenes where everybody's complexion matches the buildings behind them, and
Yeah.
sometimes the clothes they're wearing, specifically Ilsa in the yellow dress.
That's
I don't understand why they
true.
gave her such this great yellow dress, which is wonderful, and then so consistently color graded everything to where the dress doesn't pop anymore.
Yeah,
It doesn't
no,
make any sense.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it is. By the end of that sequence, it is noticeably awful.
Yeah,
you,
it's so
you
odd.
would not pick that dress was so vibrant and impressive if you
Yeah.
hadn't seen it under more natural lighting at the beginning of the sequence.
Mhm.
For all of that, though, I will say, you know, the car chase in Morocco looks great. The
Yes.
motorcycle chase in Morocco, which honestly, narratively, I would cut from the film. I
Cool,
still
though.
think looks gorgeous. Like
Looks
the
really
way the
cool.
color saturation works through that sequence is
Mhm.
impressive as hell to me. I
Yeah,
really like
fair
that.
enough.
And partly, of course, that's a testament to the fact that this film was shot almost entirely on 35mm. They're still shooting just with real film,
Oh,
except
that's
for the
cool.
underwater sequences where they're using this
Naturally.
incredibly experimental 2K vacuum-sealed waterproof camera.
Whoa.
They're one of the first people to ever use it anywhere in the world. It was a camera that was invented originally for documentary filmmaking, but
Oh,
they
sure.
needed something that could survive, like, you know, legitimately high-pressure underwater environments.
Right.
So, yeah, that was what they
Yikes.
used. That entire thing was green screened. Everything that is not Cruise or the moving arms
Yeah.
in that sequence is all green screened and CGI'd for
Sure.
safety reasons, if nothing else.
Naturally. Yeah. Interesting. I was surprised to find that computers really are supercomputers really are cooled by water.
Yeah,
I was like, what a silly thing.
It's
Make the
not-
whole thing underwater. And you're like, no, actually, dear.
Well, I don't know that they make it underwater in quite the way that this film represents, but yes, water cooling computer hardware is essential. Yeah. High-end
Wow.
computer hardware generates a lot of heat, and we have basically yet to determine a better way of handling that amount of heat than a closed water-cooled system.
Who knew?
Yeah.
You did.
I did. You have to know these things when you're king. I want to talk for a moment about the score for this film, because we commended Joe Kramer, who provides this score for Rogue Nation, who is McQuarrie's guy going back to the way of the gun. We commended his work for Jack Reacher. And it turns out that Jack Reacher might have been the exception, because the score for this film is not very
We
good.
don't
you
like
guys.
it. Yeah. It felt very animated movie. It felt very like a Pixar or
It's
something. It was really
oftentimes
strange.
That, but then you're mingling that with these really huge, punchy brass hits, that sound like a 1960s, 1970s Bond soundtrack.
Yeah, you're right.
You're literally getting that ba 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 ba
Yeah.
ba. That's not.
And it's too much.
It's not this film, and it's not what
Yeah.
Mission Impossible sounds like. It's
You know what did work for
wild.
me, though?
Tell me.
The opera.
The opera is
It's
stunning.
so lovely and good.
And I will say, Nessun Dorma is my favorite single piece. I like Turandot anyway,
Yeah.
but it is my favorite piece of operatic music, of classical music at
Definitely
all.
way up there.
I love the way that we use it in the film. I love the way that we unfold it into the score, particularly right at the end as we're like resolving our story. It's really effective.
I did like when they
there.
folded it into the score. Yeah.
My favorite musical choice takes us back to the Underwater Computer Corps and the fact that we do this 5-minute sequence with no music whatsoever.
Ooh, I didn't
There's
notice, but I did know that I was
nothing.
stressed out. Yeah.
I love the choice to make
You
it
just get like
just
a
that much.
heartbeat just getting
It's
faster
the
and
heartbeat.
faster.
It's everything external being muted by the water. When we cut
Yeah.
out to Rebecca Ferguson, we've got the mechanical sounds of her, surveillance system that she's got.
Yeah.
The whole thing. We've got, of course, all the technicality of Benji infiltrating the
Naturally.
system through the very stupid.
Yeah.
This analyzes the way you walk because that's better than reading your iris or your DNA for reasons which. Well, I don't know. Actually, okay, let me backtrack just a little. Because this is the world of Mission Impossible where these masks exist.
That's true.
Where we've had fingerprint identification, DNA identification, voice
Yeah.
identification already
They just
subverted.
had to do something different.
Maybe that's it. It would
Yeah.
never be a real world solution, but it is a
Right.
Mission Impossible solution to a Mission Impossible
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that. The movie was originally scheduled for December 2015, but Paramount pulls it back to July, which accounts for that short post-production process because they are scared of two films that are coming out in December of 2015. Couple little movies, don't know if you've heard of them, The Force Awakens
Oh.
and Spectre.
Yeah.
One of those films is a huge hit.
Yep.
One of those films was not very good, you guys.
Yeah.
The
Spectre's
Force Awakens.
another one. There are a couple of them that I've watched. I know I've watched several times.
Yeah.
And then I try to remember them, and my mind goes basically blank.
It's Spectre and
one's-
Quantum.
Yeah.
Spectre
yes,
and Quantum
exactly.
are the ones.
And they're
of
both
the
like one is
Daniel
like, ooh,
Craigs.
desert explosion, and one is helicopter Dia de los Muertos.
Spectre is Dios de los Muertos helicopter in
Right.
Mexico.
Yes.
Quantum starts with the chase through the quarry, the car chase through the quarry, which is, for all that Quantum is not a good movie, that is maybe the best car chase that we've ever had in a Bond film. It's
Okay.
absolutely where they pile through the quarry. It's like a 10-minute sequence. He gets to where he's going, then he pops the trunk of the car, and Mr. White is inside. Spoilers, you guys, for the beginning of Quantum of Solace. That's how we begin Quantum of Solace. You remember from the
Don't
end of
remember
Casino Royale when he goes up to Mr. White at the end, the guy who has been
Yeah.
puppeteering? Yeah. So we begin Quantum 5 minutes later with Bond escaping with Mr. White in the trunk of his
Okay.
car. It's strong.
Don't remember that part. Yeah.
You know how Casino Royale is the one with the Casino Royale and Skyfall's the one with Skyfall and No Time to Die is the one that's ironic? I'll say no more than that. Quantum of Solace and Spectre don't mean a thing. It's fine. Rogue Nation then is released on July 31st, 2015. It opens at number 1. It beats out the other new release of the week, a film that I could give you 50 clues to guess and you would not get it. Do you remember, along after the fact, Rekindling of the Brand, a Chevy Chase vacation movie starring Ed Helms that came out in 2015? Does that ring any kind of bell
Vaguely,
at all? Because I'm
vaguely.
going to tell you, I care about movies and I have no recollection of this film whatsoever.
I'm getting something vague about Ed Helms doing vacation something,
Wow.
but it's vague.
The previous week's box office winner, Ant-Man, is bumped
Sure.
to number 3. Minions comes in at number 4.
Boy.
The lamentable Adam Sandler video game movie Pixels slumps in at number 5. After Edge of Tomorrow being beaten out at the box office by John Green's The Fault in Our Stars, it is interesting to note that Paper Towns is currently on its 2nd week and has dropped from 6 to 8, just ahead of the 7th week of Inside Out and the 8th week of Jurassic World. I'm going to say that out of all of those films, this is definitely the best one.
This is the best one.
This
I
is
think
the
so
best
too.
one
Yeah.
by a good margin. Off a budget of $150 million, Rogue Nation makes $683 million worldwide,
Okay.
absolutely cementing this as an ongoing franchise and opening the door really to the pure, uncut McQuarrie cruise magic in Mission Impossible Fallout. That's the one where they do this without any training wheels. They get to do this without any other writers coming in. They're just secure now in the power of their franchise, which we will get to almost a month from now after some real shaky movies.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
So with all of that incredibly long preamble aside, let's get into what is, just such a dense and complex film. I think we'll maybe just try and move the high points here. What do you say?
Yes. I don't think we need to do a beat by beat so much as like a
Yeah.
movement by movement.
Well, let's begin in Belarus. Let's begin in Minsk. Let's begin with the stunt. I mean, this is a comedic action intro that doesn't really justify its place in the film, except that we wanted something really explosive to open on. How does it work for you?
Fun. No, I like it. I love the double take that not the pilot, but the guy on the aircraft does. And
right
like, there's nobody here. And he turns around and Ethan Hunt is just like, fuck you. And on he goes.
Oh, it's interesting that you read that as a fuck you. I was reading that so much as something that we get a lot from Ethan in this one, which is like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like a little shrug of, I don't know either. Okay, I guess I'll do this then. The look that he gives much later, I will pair the look that he gives the guy on the plane with the look that he gives to no one in particular. He gives a real like Jim from The Office take to camera when the bit of scaffolding that he's on in the roof of the Venetian Opera House suddenly moves upward.
Yes.
Again, a little hash. Okay, I guess this is the life
I can work
of
with
Ethan
this.
Hunt.
Yeah.
What we're really doing here, though, is introducing both the global span of our plot, because, of course, we have Brandt wherever Brandt is. We have Benji in the field in Belarus. We have Ethan on the plane. And we have Ving Rhames in Malaysia, just climbing a comms tower, I guess, working together to prevent this. It's a biotoxin, I guess, right? That's what we learn later.
I think it's a biotoxin. Yeah.
It's going to go to rebels from. Do you remember which country the rebels are from? Can you remember in your best Bridget Jones voice?
Chechnya.
Worth the runway to get to that joke. It is a hell of a sequence. It is, I think, very visually impressive. You're right. It's not as kinetic because we're not cutting away for perspective, for context, which is so valuable in moments like this. But yeah, I mean, just knowing that it's real, which every single person knew. No one went into this film after the promotion not knowing that this was a real thing that they really did, like a bunch of idiots. What I do love in the real world is that Simon Pegg and Chris McQuarrie and all of the team were actually on the plane when they were doing this stunt.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Why do that? Why is that the best option?
Fun. That's why I think.
I guess so.
Sometimes you want making movies to be fun.
This leads us directly into our very, very animated title sequence. We're kind of following on from what we did in Ghost Protocol with this title sequence. Does it work for you?
Yeah, I like it.
Very 60s TV, I
totally.
think. Yeah.
Yep.
From there, we're out to the vinyl record store in London.
I always love a record store every time.
And we do this powerful subversion of expectation, which I kind of think doesn't completely work just because the quality of the voice is not what I want it to be. Like the dramatic delivery of the briefing is not what I want it to be.
Interesting. I didn't really notice that because I was so impressed by the record player. I just thought that was a really cool piece of, that was neat.
A lot of the set design throughout this film is really strong, but this stands out. This record store is just gorgeous. Right off Piccadilly Circus too. Like just beautiful. I love the way that we're using London as a weirdly intimate environment,
London is like home.
It's interesting. I love the girl here. I love the very complicated coded exchange about jazz music and who plays what on what album. It's all very silly spy stuff, but
you know what,
fun.
I'm into it, I like it, it's fine.
But then that turn of, and this briefing is from the Syndicate and you are screwed, my boy. It's good stuff.
It's cool.
What do you think of your first impression of Solomon Lane? Your first impression of Sean Harris here?
He's creepy and eerie.
Role?
It's good.
Killing a girl and being ruthless.
Having really no chin. It is interesting. His face just stops. It's upsetting.
I do wish, as I suggested earlier, I do wish that we give him more to do later. And not even more in the sense that he deserves more, but just different things to do.
Yeah.
Because he's very one note. But that note is, I think, extremely creepy and effective. And it works for me. I think also that Rebecca Ferguson gives him a huge amount to play off in their scenes together.
Yeah.
Which I just, really, really respect. We cut out to Washington for a kind of unnecessary scene. I could argue that you could cut all the stuff with Baldwin. I could argue that...
Oh, I mean, you could.
I wonder, here's a little bit of speculation for you. I wonder if, you know the moment in Morocco when we crash into the car that has Brandt and Luther in it? I wonder if there was a version of the script when that was the first time that we were supposed to see Brandt and Luther. And that take of, oh my God, it's you, would have been the same as the audience is feeling in that moment. And that is why so much of this other material is obviously backfilled, right? The green screen briefing scene that we do not need feels inessential to me. Feels like it could have been added at the last moment because the audience wasn't keeping up with the movement of the plot. Maybe test screenings necessitated that. I'm not sure.
But I don't know. We get all, because then that's everything with the court or whatever, where he's trying to get IMF disbanded.
But I don't know that any of that is necessary.
I wouldn't say it's necessary, but I do like it.
Well, okay, liking it is enough.
I like it. Yeah.
I do like the version that we get of Ethan's career in this scene too, where we get, this is the greatest hits of Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
He stole the knock list from the Pentagon. He blew up a thing. There was the time with the bus. Like, it's just, it's really kind of agree. But even there, we're getting Alec Baldwin as Ethan Hunt's greatest fanboy.
A little bit.
Love
yeah,
it.
a bit of a crush. I
Love
like it. Mm-hmm.
This is our introduction to Ilsa, where we cut back to Ethan stripped half to the waist and tied to a pipe. He's going to be tortured by the ex-KGB agent called the Bone Doctor, which is a bad sentence anyway. You cut it. We do some of this, posturing. We do some of the classic
The pipe stunt's really cool. Did he just do that?
Yep.
That's fucking cool.
It is cool.
Actually. That was really awesome.
Core workouts for days.
Yes. Dang.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It's really impressive. And Ilsa is just
she's wonderful.
Magnetic from the jump.
They do consistently put her in very impractical shoes. She takes them off every time.
I do
Not
like,
every time.
I
most
like
times.
that we signpost that.
Yes, sure.
My feel there is that she is acknowledging that as a woman, there is a difference between like your costume and your performance gear, and there really isn't for men, which is of course not true in real life, because if you're wearing like, wingtips, if you're wearing dress shoes and you try and run down a cobbled street, you're going to wind up on your ass in like 2 seconds flat. But it's much more exaggerated between men and women in that regard. I love the moment where she hands him her shoes at the top of the opera house.
I do like that too.
Just great. It doesn't hand
shoes,
him.
please.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's immediately complex. She's immediately engaging. She's immediately self-motivated, which is so crucial. She does not subordinate her own task to Ethan's task. She's doing her thing. She helps him. She lets him escape and then goes back to cover her story. I love it.
Yeah, I
absolutely
do too.
love it.
It's a great intro.
Really punchy. This is where we get the emergency phone call from Ethan to Brandt, telling him that everything has gone wrong. And that leads directly to, Baldwin really getting to grandstand about the kind of guy that Ethan Hunt is to Brandt. This is where we get the quote, Hunt is both arsonist and fireman. Come on. Are you saying you're hot for him? Are you saying you're hot for him?
Hunt is the manifestation of destiny.
And I want to kiss his perfect mouth. I do. I mean, who doesn't? This is where the film takes perhaps its most bold narrative turn, because this is where we skip ahead 6 entire months.
Oh, and we have the awful beard.
Yeah, for no reason for the very briefest amount of time.
It's terrible.
It is extremely
It looks
poor.
like it's composed of pubic hair. It's really bad.
I have noted here in my notes, a very realistic and good and convincing beard. It turns out that Ethan certainly is not in Havana. We actually shoot in Havana for these exteriors, because maybe at this point we have more money than sense.
And you know
I'm
what?
not sure.
Nothing else looks like Havana, so why
That's
not do
maybe
it?
True. Yeah, okay. He takes this opportunity to pass information about the Syndicate to the CIA while remaining neatly out of sight. Then we cut out to Benji, who is, I'm going to argue, at least for the middle part of this film, going to function narratively as our protagonist. Like, we are chiefly engaged in Benji's perspective, if not quite in Benji's connection to the stakes of the conflict, right? Ethan's handling that part, but Benji is our audience surrogate character here. Does this work for you with him, quietly playing the very product-placed Halo 5?
Oh my God. On 3 Dell computers?
Whoosh.
Yes. The product placement in this scene was insane.
Again,
between Halo 5 and the Dells.
Throughout
the
film, but
whoa. It was really noticeable
the
here.
Most odious.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Drinking a Coca-Cola.
Right.
He wasn't, but he should have been.
While wearing a little hat with a Nike swoosh.
Yeah, like,
it's
come
that
on.
scene from Wayne's World where the entirety
awful.
Just shocking. We do the nice little polygraph thing, which
the polygraph is good.
Like.
Yep, I like it.
Yeah, you're right. Simon Pegg's never been better than this film.
His dramatic performances are so good in this. It's really surprising. I didn't know that he could do that.
Yeah. We have this beat where he wins tickets to Turandot in Vienna, which it's never really clear how much he believes that is true and how much he knows from the jump that this is a fake thing. And this is also where we set up this minor recurring beat, this little 3 beats through the course of the film about whether or not he and Ethan are friends.
Yes.
Which we treat like it is, I don't know, the ultimate
almost
declaration of loyalty.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it, right? Like, is Ethan Hunt your person or not?
Yes.
Like, that's the severity with which we're treating whether or not they are friends. I kind of love it. He goes to Vienna. A mysterious stranger passes him cool spy glasses, and we get the mission briefing to find the man from the record store, and then we just spend a luxurious and brilliant 20 minutes in the Vienna Opera House, and
I love
rules.
everything about it. Yep.
It's
Everything about it's
so
great. I just want to be a fancy lady in a fancy dress.
With hopefully fewer assassins in the building.
Fewer assassins
That
in the
be
building
great.
would be good. But you have to make sacrifices for these things.
I love the way that we're building out the complexity of the plot as it's happening. We get the glimpse of Ilsa, and then we get the guy with the, I did not note down what kind of musical instrument that was that he was building into a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
Some kind of oboe or something.
An enormous flute. I don't know.
An enormous flute. Yes, he's an enormous flautist with an enormous flute. Say that 6 times
Some
fast
kind of
before you start
clarinet or something.
podcasting.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very effective though, and feels kind of spycraft. And then of course there's the guy with the chiseled face who looks like a mannequin wearing the police outfit, who is also revealed
I wrote
to
down
be
Aryan Goon from Central Casting.
Aryan Goon.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll need one Aryan. We'll need 6 foot 4 inches of Aryan Goon, please, if you can have that delivered to the set by the morning. We get the fight high above the stage. We get, as we noted earlier, that legitimate joke about Tom Cruise's height, which is always
which is
lovely
fun and
to
good.
see.
Yeah.
It is maybe running a little long by the time that we get all the way to the final confrontation, but the tension of the shots ringing out and Ethan's resourcefulness shooting to injure the Austrian chancellor.
Yes.
When he believes that both Ilsa and the other gunman are both trying to kill the chancellor. I really like that. That's so smart. It's so deft, and really demonstrates what Ethan can do in the moment when the pressure is applied. He can always find a solution, which
It's true. Yeah.
works for me as a character. I
I
like
like
these
that.
characters that don't give up. I don't know, man. The building is sealed. Ethan finds Ilsa without ever making it clear how, and offers her a way out via the roof just in time for the Chancellor's car to explode on the street after he has taken her shoes and resourcefully led them to the ground.
So
really
much
good,
happened
really
here.
hot, really fun.
Yeah, this was all fun and good. There was so much that as I was thinking to myself that I liked the Chancellor's wife's haircut, I missed that his car exploded. And later I was like, car bomb? What? It all happens so fast.
It is maybe a little too pacey right at the end
frenetic.
of the sequence,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Because we don't explain how, Ethan gets to Ilsa. We get the rooftop escape. We get the coming down the rope. And then all at once, the Chancellor's car explodes and Benji is there in another car.
Yeah, there's just a lot all at once.
And that's what I mean about the
And then she's
density.
in the car for like 15 seconds, and then she's
Like
out of the
15
car.
seconds,
and
then rolls herself out. You'll know how to find me. We
Right.
get the weird subversion of that shade is very hard to find with the lipstick. That's also a USB, because of course it is. Everything in this movie is also a USB. It's genuinely good. Just really fun,
it is.
stupid, high-octane spy shenanigans, which is what you should be coming to a Mission Impossible movie for. Does the movie get better than this? Is for you the Opera House sequence the highlight of the film, or is there more for you to look forward to as you're moving
and the underwater, the underwater stunt or whatever you want to call it. That whole sequence is really good and upsetting and tense.
Yeah, I agree.
It's one that sticks with me for sure. I always the 2 big stunts that I think of for Mission Impossible. I guess there are 3 now, because there's helicopter at Fallout. This is backwards order.
Yes.
This underwater one here in Rogue Nation, and the initial on the wires is
from the first one.
From the very first one.
Yeah,
Those are the ones that I think of.
I think of the Burj Khalifa too. I think the climbing
Burj
of the Burj
Khalifa makes
Khalifa is
sense.
extremely
Yeah, it is
strong.
good.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. You can basically distill out one great action sequence from each of these films. This is also the moment in the film where we get the note from Hunley that the IMF has been disbanded and has been replaced by the Special Activities Division.
Oh, sad.
Which is a better name, but is a worse acronym. Their orders for Hunt are now shoot to kill. Hunt leads Benji to the old IMF safe house. He's been tracking this mysterious man. We get the lipstick. We get the exposition of what is happening. Ilsa shows up at this point to meet with Solomon Lane. We get their first real interaction, which is just fantastic. And then all at once we're in Casablanca.
Yeah.
I love, and I know that it's architected. I know it's really a product of smart screenwriting rather than Ilsa's genius and insight. I love how she can read Ethan. I love how well she knows him. And really what I'm saying is I love how well Rebecca Ferguson communicates that intelligence on screen.
Yes.
I have no problem believing that woman can read that man with absolute clarity.
Yeah.
It's really strong. So we're in Morocco. We get to do the great heist setup for the infiltration of the digital repository, where the USB information is being held. I guess just this packet that has been dropped off by one of Lane's agents, which we are told is a knock list for the Syndicate, in effect.
Yes.
It turns out to not be that, but I love even here we're kind of, oh yeah, we've done this before.
Yeah, I know what that is.
A knock list. We know how to break into an unbreakable in 2 place and steal a knock list. We're comfortable here. And then, we go through the whole sequence, which I guess we've pretty much discussed already, but
yeah, I think so.
Is there anything else that you want to call? I mean, the moment where he drowns is very upsetting.
It's really upsetting.
And it shouldn't be, but the moment where she rescues him is genuinely exhilarating and great and really works, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. And her sudden grabbing the disc and running off, or the USB, I suppose, works for me too.
Yeah, we're setting up a lot of things here so that we can subvert them. You know, we already had the moment in the safe house where Benji gets his big speech about, I am a field agent, this is why I'm here. And then we get Ethan just saying, okay.
Yeah.
And kind of deflating that scene very quickly. We set up what's expected from a Mission Impossible film so that we can subvert it, oftentimes for comedic effect, which I think is great because Peg can handle that.
Yeah, it worked really well.
Peg eats in that milieu. Like that is his space. How do you feel it works when he finally meets up with Ilsa and Ethan on the other side and Ethan has just been resuscitated after drowning?
I still think everything that Peg is doing works. The only thing I don't like about the sequence is that we really ogle Rebecca Ferguson in a way I don't like. I hope it was a stunt double even. Like, it's that much that I don't like it.
That's so interesting. Did you feel that?
I did. Yeah. The whole scene where she's stripping off her shirt and she's just in her panties and it's a lot of her butt and there's
it is a lot of her butt. That's true. I must admit that I felt in that moment that what we were showing the audience, particularly after Cruz has been topless through a lot of this film, you know, what we're showing the audience there is how muscled she is.
She is strong, but I don't think that's what we were showing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd have to, I don't want to go back and look at it now because that's going to feel
glad
stupid,
that you didn't.
In the moment,
it
didn't trip my It didn't feel too intrusive, but yeah, you're right. It is completely unnecessary.
Whereas I didn't mind at all her leg up to prop the rifle on.
Because it's motivated.
And cool and sexy and
shameless.
fun. It's a little shameless, but like whatever, it's cool.
It is the Bondiest thing that we do in this film.
So Bondi. Yeah. But yeah, fun and just much less I don't know. This feels intrusive because she has her back to us. I feel like we're not supposed to be watching her if she's turned around. I don't know. There's something about it I don't like.
Is she turned around because she's hiding the disc that she just took? I don't remember how we shoot
before.
That. She doesn't take it until after she knocks Benji out.
Yeah, this is her just getting redressed.
Well, now
and
you're saying it.
Also, if she had done it as a distraction so that she could grab the disc, that would be fine too. But it doesn't feel
or
like
even
that.
if she'd just been talking while she was doing it and it was like a casual, maybe if it wasn't so...
Maybe, but it felt like a private moment.
Yeah.
And it was weird. I didn't like it.
I hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. What do you think of disoriented Cruz that we get through this next?
Really great, actually.
Sequence.
Very, very good.
It is kind of good, isn't it?
It's good acting, actually.
Yeah.
No, I think it's lovely.
I remember seeing in the behind-the-scenes featurettes connected with this film that they really shot the driving down the staircase thing with Cruz driving the car and Peg in the passenger seat, and he hated every minute of it.
I'll bet he did.
Screaming constantly. It's uncomfortable to watch. Like, what they are putting that car through is really difficult.
Yeah,
this is a
BMW.
pretty great chase sequence. Do you think?
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah. I don't like the car flipping end to end with the two of them in it. That's excellent editing and it feels real and I don't like it.
I think that feels real when you're inside it. I think the exterior shot of that is one of the moments that feels a little CGI heavy.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the moments that doesn't really connect. And again, I said when we were watching this movie feels a little long because it is so dense, and I think that you can cut both the car chase and the subsequent You can cut the car chase and the subsequent motorcycle chase. Even though I think they are good. We don't need them. Ilsa can just vanish.
I don't know, but her stepping into the road like she does to stop him.
That is the moment.
And then watching to make sure he's okay, and that little bit of face that's just a bit apologetic, but yeah.
Because it, again, demonstrates her masterful understanding of this dude. She knows exactly what is going to happen. He's not going to hit her.
Yep.
He is going to tank his own bike. He is going to fall to the ground rather than run the risk of hurting her. It's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly assured. And you're right. All of her body language as she's getting back onto the bike and goes is great. And then we get the other subversion where, of course, Benji made a copy of the disc because that's what we do.
But then maybe you should tell me that before we go through this crazy chase that almost kills us.
If you had said that before we got into this car and had this lunatic, we wouldn't have done it. We wouldn't have needed to do it. It's
silly.
Yeah, and this, I think, really is where the plot starts to unravel just a little bit here.
It starts to slide a little sideways.
We get the great scene with Ilsa delivering the information to Atlee and him refusing basically to allow her to come back in.
Yeah, that sucks.
Because we find out subsequently that he is the architect of the Syndicate.
Right.
Which I don't know that I need. I don't know really how I feel about the idea of the Syndicate, like as a high concept, right, for the Mission Impossible universe. Like, to what end? Because what we have seen repeatedly in the Mission Impossible universe is that intelligence agents can do whatever the hell they want. Like, we've never spent time on consequence. We've never spent time on collateral damage. We've never observed the formalities of these agents working within, a framework of actual law and responsibility. So what was the Syndicate intended to be or do? Is the Syndicate created to kind of further British efforts anonymously in the same way that like the great naval powers would hire privateers, right, to conduct military warfare under the guise of piracy?
That's a very good metaphor, I think. Yeah, that's great.
Shouldn't it be better controlled than that? You're just going to hire all of these people, hand them $2.5 billion and send them out into the world to cause trouble?
Yeah, but the thing is that he created it, and then the prime minister said, no, thank you, that's a terrible idea. So then he just had all these people together with no authority over them, and they went their own way.
And Lane, who believes textually, Lane believes that this is wrong. He believes that this is the wrong thing to do. He believes that it is morally reprehensible, which is why he takes control of the Syndicate. I know that you're furrowing your brow now, but that is the
that
plot.
What he said? Yes. I don't know. Okay, maybe so.
Doesn't really fit for me.
I thought he was just saying everything's so corrupt anyway. I might as well do it my own corrupt way because my corruption is different from theirs, which is, kind of how it works, unfortunately.
We're going to get a slightly different perspective on the Syndicate when we come back for Fallout. Solomon Lane will return in Mission Impossible Fallout, and I'm going to see if we can make more sense of it there. This is when we learn that the data recovered from the computer was not actually just a knock list anyway, and it is in fact sealed. Right. It is a red box, which is a very specific and lovely reference to like British parliamentary politics, where they actually use red boxes to ferry secure documents from one location to another. It's an ancient tradition.
I've seen that in The Crown, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that this is a digital version of that and introduces the necessity of getting to the Prime Minister for our penultimate set piece, I guess. You're feeling good about the film at this point?
Yeah.
We have another meeting between Ilsa and Lane, which is just basically doubling down on the previous meeting. And then, this is where we discover that the disc has been erased, though we have not yet figured out that it was by
but she didn't know
Atlee.
that. Yes.
Yeah. Then we have the meeting with Hunt, which is kind of romantic, right? We're kind of doing this. This is where she gives him the three options, the last of which is, we could just go away together.
And the thing is that I love that speech, but for me, it's the only time that the performance lets me down a little bit.
I completely agree.
It's a little bit wooden.
But is it her though? Is it Rebecca Ferguson not giving a good performance, or is it Ilsa not giving a good performance? Because she can't really mean that. She doesn't want to go away with Ethan Hunt. Like, she doesn't want to go and be okay.
Like, maybe this is supposed to be part of...
I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's the one hollow note in her performance across the whole movie. And I wonder if it's...
I like that as a reading.
Deliberate. Yeah.
That this is just part of the script that I brought today.
We then have to lock the end of the film. Benji is abducted so that Ethan has to go and crack the code on this USB before midnight, because why not make it midnight? Why not be as dramatic as you can possibly be? This is where we cut out to the charity event. Hunley tells Atlee that the Prime Minister's life is in danger after being nudged to do so by Brandt. Layers within layers within layers.
So much.
And we get this standoff in this beautifully, sumptuously appointed room, which is so good. They tell the Prime Minister the whole story, but he, it turns out, already knows about the Syndicate. Atlee built it as this proxy intelligence system. And this is where we get the great line that we love so much. Sir, Hunt is the living manifestation of destiny, and he has made you his mission. Settle down, Alec Baldwin. Settle down.
Pretty great.
Atlee, of course, is really Hunt. The real Atlee arrives just in time to kind of provoke movement, but not actually foil their plan, which is kind of nice. I like the two guys at the door. Just getting an unnecessary comedic beat here with Atlee. That works. The red box, we learn, contains billions of dollars of funding. And then we're into the last action sequence. Ethan goes to the meeting. Benji is explosively rigged. Ilsa is, having these moments of doubt. I find her a little difficult to read through this sequence too, where she is kind of inessential to the proceedings, at least until the Benji situation is taken care of. She has to kind of mechanically be there, but I'm not sure what she's contributing. And I'm not sure in a movie where we've spent so much time, by which I mean 2 minutes, but we've spent a surprising amount of time focused on the friendship between Benji and Ethan. I'm not sure that Ilsa adds anything to this dynamic by being present at this point.
Yeah, I think the idea is just that the threat is that they will all be killed. So,
but it's also the civilian population. Right?
Yeah, but you're right. She doesn't have to be there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Narratively, I would have maybe found something else for her to do, just to give that moment to just Ethan and Benji with the crowd around them. but, make it that bit more focused, that bit more personal.
Yeah.
And we get here the most implausible turn, I'm going to say, in a Mission Impossible film, where we learn, well, I don't know. Has Ethan memorized the contents of the data packet?
See, at
or
this
has he
point-
memorized one account and he is faking the rest of it?
Maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6.
Maybe he
even.
gave himself an out.
Maybe enough to where he could convince the guy.
So he is the last remaining repository of that knowledge, right? Which means that the rest of that money
I am the disc.
just cannot be recovered now.
That's
There's just
the
bare minimum
idea?
$2 billion just out there in the world in innumerable tiny accounts that cannot be accessed. He also just casually hands Solomon Lane $50 million to prove that he's serious,
Yeah.
which is quite a gesture.
Yeah, especially to a terrorist.
If
he will use that money.
Right? If the rest of this film is 10 out of 10, just to take that as our baseline, if we assume, and I don't think that this is true, but if we assume that the rest of this film is 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
where does this last sequence from Benji on the chair, this apparently rewritten closing sequence,
Yeah, see, the
where does
thing
it fall for
about
you?
it is that it works really well as an episode of BBC Sherlock. It basically is,
That's
right?
How dare you?
This is just the
That is
end of the first season of
incredibly
Sherlock.
astute.
Well, it's the same thing. The
yeah, you're
actors even
right.
look a little bit similar.
But it is also, more than
It's
just being
very
the same.
Moriarty,
It is
it's very-
intentionally the same.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I liked that very much as a television show for Sherlock. I thought that was a
But
great turn.
maybe it works better when
But maybe-
the scale has been established
Yeah,
at a
it's like-
Sherlockian level and not at a
Yes,
Huntian level.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're
Yeah.
saying. God, it even
kind
looks kind of similar. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of blows up the world a little bit, but I don't hate it, that being said. It's a little
I
bit
don't hate
disappointing,
it,
but
yeah.
it's fine.
I would have been disappointed to be in that room and kind of leave with a shrug saying, okay, well, I guess this is what we came up with.
I guess this will work.
We've got 10 days left. This is what we can
Yeah.
do. Where the rest of the film kind of feels so uncompromised. And I really do think that we're going to see this pivot. I think that this is the demarcation between Rogue Nation and Fallout, is that Fallout, they really have nobody looking over their shoulders. It is
Yeah.
the distilled kind of Cruise McQuarrie experience.
Yeah.
And whether you like that or don't like that is going to really affect how much you enjoy that film. I'm kind of into it, honestly. I think this is probably now my favorite flavor of Cruise. I think he's maybe
Sure.
better in these films than he is anywhere else at this
Yeah,
point.
at this point, sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the race through the streets of London. We take out Lane's men one at a time, very conveniently. Ilsa fights with the Bone Doctor. Ethan runs from Lane, only to trap him in a very well architected glass box. They all feel
Yeah.
very confident about how good that glass is, by the
They
way.
do. I don't think I would stand there
It's
with somebody shooting right into my...
ballsy.
Yeah, it is ballsy. Yeah. And it has cracked. Yeah.
It's also,
ballsy.
I think, as kind of, I don't know what, cartoonish as superhero movie as this resolution
It is both of those. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
finally caught the villain in the material that he cannot break through
Right.
on his
Yes,
own.
absolutely. Sure.
I do like having the team together. I do like that we've built out this dimension to
Me too.
Ethan where he's been so much on the outskirts of the film in terms of, audience identification.
Mm-hmm.
And the film is just constantly trying to integrate him with Benji, with Brent,
the
with
team.
Luther.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
kind of forcing a team on this guy who has been defined for, 2 or 3 films, depending on how you read the intention of the movies, as someone who is afraid of this kind of commitment, of exactly this kind of commitment. Right? This is the Ethan that we met at the beginning of Mission Impossible 1, who just saw his team die.
Yeah.
I kind of like the arc that we've taken here.
It's true. Yeah, I do too. That's a really good point. And I like what we're doing. And I like the way that he works as a team, honestly, especially the way he works with Ilsa.
We get the moment of the gas billowing into the tank, which just looks fantastic.
Yeah, and it's, of course, a callback to that first scene where they met. Yeah.
Both times we do that. I just think it looks terrific.
It
Then
looks
we
good.
get the moment.
It does make me worry for the actors. I'm like, that can't be comfortable. That's a real smoke machine or fog machine. Or
don't
hopefully
think so.
it's steam. No, you think it's all CGI?
Expectation would be CGI. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then it's pretty well done.
I don't know for sure, but that would, that would certainly
It's
be my
pretty well done if
expectation.
it is CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get the moment between Ethan and Ilsa just kind of closing out the movie with Ness and Dorma rising in the soundtrack, which is really nice. And then we cut out to Hunley, who goes to tell the committee that actually it was all a trick. It was all a big joke.
Yeah.
It was all part of a plan. I was in on it from the beginning.
The
I'm
whole
amazing.
time.
Let me tell you the story of how I saved the British Prime Minister this time. From the head of the MI6, no less.
Yep.
Pretty impressive
Pretty good.
story. Yeah, I don't know. There's a version of this where you spend more time trying to make this an arc for Hunley. You try and make him come around. You try and make him change. And instead he's just being given the gift of his dreams. He
Yes.
just gets to be on the inside track with Ethan Hunt and the IMF. And wow.
Cute.
Pretty great. And honestly, we've hardly talked about him at all. I think that Renner does not need to be in this film, but I also think that he is fine. I also think that this is a more capable and confident and relaxed performance than we got from him before. And if we're going to have him in these films, and spoilers, we're not going to after this one, but if we're going to have him in these films, he should be doing this. He should be doing comic relief. He should be working and kind of leveraging that middleman position that he has in the team and outside of the team. All of that kind of works for me. Yeah. Do you think that he is betraying them when we're setting up the pivot at the end here?
No, but I
never
think
for a second.
No, I don't. But I do think that it's good that means that whoever's writing him, like McQuarrie, must know that the audience doesn't trust Renner, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I think so too.
That the audience is like, I don't know about this guy. So
I do think that's interesting. I think you put your finger on something really significant there, which is McQuarrie's ability to tap into the on-screen persona of these actors. Like the reason that he is so successful with Cruise is that he gets Cruise better than anyone else.
Right.
I genuinely do think that is true. And what we're seeing here, if this movie is to be, taken as proof, he seems to get Peg better than anyone else.
I would agree. And gives him the best to do. Baldwin too is top of his game, I think.
Ferguson as well. I think you can make an argument that he's really connecting with her too. And certainly he's going to get Michelle Monaghan better than anyone has, maybe in any movie ever.
Yeah, that's true.
We're really front-loading our relationship with Mission Impossible Fallout. That's going to do it for our discussion of Rogue Nation, though. We have one thing left to do, and that's to put it on the big list. I mentioned last week that we're going to have a number of movies competing for top 5 positions here, and that we have a number of Mission Impossible movies looking to just edge out Edge of Tomorrow at number 3 on the list right now. Let me say this. Top Gun is number 2 on the list.
Yes.
This movie's not as good as Top Gun.
No.
Mission Impossible 1 is number 5 on the list. This movie's better than Mission Impossible 1.
Agreed.
So, mathematically, therefore, is it better than Edge of Tomorrow, worse than Edge of Tomorrow, but better than Ghost Protocol, or worse than Ghost Protocol? Those are the 3 spots where it can fit.
I think it might be better than Edge of Tomorrow. I think it's the opera scene for me that puts it up and over for me. I think that's really special and good. We get something close to it with the farm scene in Edge of Tomorrow, but we never quite get those two characters to connect the same way that we do Ilsa and Ethan. So I'm going to put this one above. I think it does everything that Edge of Tomorrow does and does more things better.
I think you're right. And I think that if you watched this film and felt like, wow, that's it. That's the pinnacle of Mission Impossible. This is as good as this franchise is ever going to get. You would be completely justified in that opinion at this point.
A better ensemble cast, too.
I'm really interested in seeing what we make of Fallout now that we've put all of this pressure on it. But that's not next, I'm afraid to say, because next week, Cruise ignores his own advice and goes back to Jack Reacher in Jack Reacher Never Go Back. We have Edward Zwick directing. We've got Colby Smulders. We've got Aldous Hodge. We've got Robert Nepper. That's right. We've got the stars of How I Met Your Mother and Friday Night Lights and Leverage. And I don't know, that first season of Heroes, I guess. That means officially that this is the closest that Cruise has ever been to making a TV show.
To be on TV.
Everybody else involved here. Absolute TV caliber. It
should be a TV procedural. Jack Reacher should be like 24
turns out that's
something.
What they did with it right after this, because this kills the Jack Reacher franchise. It's going to be a really interesting discussion. This is where things get hairy, you guys. We've got 3 shaky films, then we've got 3, I think, unalloyed bangers here at the end of our run. 6 episodes left here on The Last Star in Hollywood. Thank you so much for joining us and sticking with us this far. Elizabeth, would you like in particular to thank our wonderful patrons who make all of this possible?
You know I would. Our special thanks to Leslie Skipa, to Louise in Dallas, Megan Lauder, Phoebe, Art Kilmer, Kimberly Bear, Self on a Shelf, Jolene Stark, Chris Dons, and the Lady Gordon.
You are all fantastic. You are all members of the IMF or the SAD, whichever you prefer. Either way, Hunley will speak very warmly about you and your skills. That's going to do it for this week's episode. I will say, coming up in the next couple days over on the Patreon page, if you are a Patreon supporter, you will find our bonus episode for the Brad Bird animated classic, The Incredibles. Just in case you want to hear me talk a little more about Brad Bird. We've got a deep bench. It's kind of quietly turned into quite the catalog over there on the Patreon page. We've got Dirty Dancing and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Gone in 60 Seconds, Bridget Jones's Diary. There's so much of it. If you want to hear the origin of Chechnya, go and listen to our episode on Bridget Jones's Diary. That's going to do it for our discussion of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. That's going to do it for this week's episode of The Last Star in Hollywood. We'll be back next time with more. Until then, take care.
See you next time.
Hunt is uniquely trained and highly motivated. A specialist without equal, immune to any countermeasures. There is no secret he cannot extract, no security he cannot breach, no person he cannot become. He has most likely anticipated this very conversation and is waiting to strike in whatever direction we move. Sir, Hunt is the living manifestation of destiny, and he has made you his mission.